If you haven't seen the build video of this bike, well, you should, but in case you didn't, let me give you a quick rundown of the components that I've chosen for this build. So first of all, I've used the Sram Rival Access group set. It is a one-bike group set that is fully wireless and electronic. In the back we have a 1032 cassette, and in the front we have a chainring with 40 teeth. I have chosen the Shimano SPD 520 pedals, so the very cheap ones that mostly everybody is using, because they are like 35 euros or so. The wheels that I've chosen for this build are the Elite Wheels ENT in 50mm depth. They are 26mm wide at the outer width and 23mm at the inner width. They are paired with the Continental GP5000 in the tubeless edition, and I've also set them up tubeless. The tubeless valves are muck-off and they have a bright color, and that's why I've chosen them. The finishing kit is a mix out of Aliexpress parts. So as for the saddle, we have a 3D printed fully carbon saddle from Ryet. The seat post is a ultralight version from Toseek. It is in the width of 27.2mm. The handlebar and stem are both from Uno components and they are aluminium. The bar tape is also an Aliexpress no-name product, and so are the titanium bottle cages that I've used here. But what you are probably most interested in is the frameset itself, and this is the Mason Resolution V3 frameset, so the third edition of the first frameset that Mason Cycles ever produced. It is in the size 50 centimeters, which could be considered an XS frameset. I am 172 centimeters tall, so yeah, that's what you can make of it. This looks rather vintage, but I have to say it has all of the modern amenities that you need. To begin with, it has the through axles that make them compliant with most of the modern road wheel sets that you can purchase. It has internal cable routing when it comes to the frame and the fork, but the headset has no internal cable routing, so that makes it a little bit more vintage, also makes it able to be more adjustable in the future. The frame set also has all of these kind of details like the custom inserts that you see here. It can obviously also take a 2x drivetrain if you want to do that. I hate 2x, I have to say. Let's talk a bit about the geometry of this bike. So as you can see from the profile already, it is a more endurance-oriented road bike. It is not super aggressive compared to maybe like a Canyon Aeroad, for example, but it's also not very slack like a modern tourer that you sit very upright on. So for me, it is kind of the perfect geometry for long rides. It can go fast if you want to go fast. You can get quite aero on this bike, even though it's obviously not an aero road bike. But it's also not so slack that if you want to go fast, you cannot, because you have such an upright position. For me, that makes it a really great all-around bike for going to the office, commuting, and also going for long rides on the weekend. So in terms of geometry, I really have to say I love this bike. But with the technical details out of the way, how does this bike actually feel to ride? Well, I've had it for about 3 months now, and within these 3 months, I have put about 1,500 kilometers on this bike. Of these 1,500 kilometers, I did 2 200-kilometer trips and 1 bikepacking trip. Furthermore, there's a lot of climbing where I live. So I live in central Switzerland, in the city of Lucerne. So there are quite a few long and short climbs, steep and not so steep, within a 100-kilometer radius of where I live. So I've tested this bike, in kind of all conditions that you would want to ride this bike in. And so far, I have to say, it is an absolute breeze. Maybe to the question of why I chose steel in the first place, well, I'm using this bike to commute, to train, and to do bikepacking on. So it had to be a bike that is very rough, that can take a beating, and that I don't have to worry about so much. I also have this Rose back road, which is a carbon frame set, and when I take that out, I sometimes have to think, well, if I dink it, I don't know, in the train, other people ride into it, I don't know, whatever might happen. Sometimes with carbon you cannot really see the damage, and it's more like underlying delamination. This cannot really happen with steel. So this gives me the peace of mind that I can use and abuse this bike without too much of a worry about the structural integrity of the frame set. That's why I've chosen steel. What I like about this Mason Resolution is that the cables are semi-hidden. So as you can see, you cannot see any of the cables around the frame. Maybe here on the down tube a little bit where there's the rear brake hose, and also in the front where the cockpit is. But In terms of the frame, unlike the Fairlight, for example, which has the cables running down the down tube, I really find this to be a very sleek looking bike. The color is amazing, as you can hopefully see on these B-roll shots. It rides like a dream. Whether that's now to be attributed to steel, as some people might find it to be a wonder material, I don't know, but I really like the ride quality. I think also the hourglass structure in the fork and also the rear stays really helps give the bike sort of a compliance. But fear not, this is not like the old kind of steel road bikes. Yeah, your dad also rode on. These are not the 70s, 80s, 90s bikes that feel like a wet noodle sometimes. This is very, very stiff modern steel, especially if you're out of the saddle. You don't feel any flex whatsoever, but it's also not really a harsh ride. This bike can take up to 35mm tires, which I will also get to eventually, but more on that at the end of this video. Now, do I regret the choice of going with a steel road bike frame? And I have to say, not at all whatsoever. I also have the Rose Backroad that is carbon fiber. It weighs about 7.9 kilos. This bike in comparison now weighs about 9.5. But I really don't feel that much of a difference on the climbs. It's still very fun to ride, no matter the conditions, no matter what the terrain is. I have taken it graveling, I have taken it on smooth tarmac, and up until now it really performs and handles very well. So I do not regret going with steel at all. The main benefit for me is that I really don't have to think about what I do with the bike, where I go. I can just take it in the train, have it stand next to other bikes, and not fear that someone dinks the carbon and it delaminates. So up until now, very satisfied with that. Maybe about the component choices. Do I like them? Would I change anything? What is my opinion on that? So first of all, the Sram Rival Access group set is phenomenal. It was a breeze to install, as you don't have to wire that much. You have the brake hoses through the frame and the fork. That's about it. The whole drivetrain area is super easy to assemble. The micro adjustments are also easy to do. You do it via an app, and then you can make some micro adjustments on the screen. You can also do it via a double tap here. But yeah, so far really nice. I will also go with SRAM Access for the next bike build, and yes, there will be a next bike build, of course. What I also really like is the titanium bottle cages. I've mentioned them in a different video of mine, the Aliexpress video that I've just published recently. They hold bottles very tightly. I like the contrast of the more silvery, grayish finish in contrast to the Bloom frame. What do I not like so much about the bike? Well, there's mostly two things. First of all is the handlebars. I'm not really a fan of the shape of the handlebars. They have no flair whatsoever. They are very straight, and the area in the drops is not that large. So if you really like to comfortably sit in the drops, these handlebars are definitely ones for you, and I will probably change them in the future. The other thing is the size of the tires. I went with the Continental GP5000 in 30mm, as I said before. This bike can take 35mm tires, so I will probably change to thicker ones in the future. But other than that, I have to say this bike is a true breeze. So, in conclusion, the Mason Resolution is a vintage-looking, modernly built road bike that has all of the amenities that you want. It can take all of the modern componentry and really makes it ride like a dream. If that's worth it, the 1,800 euros or so for the frame set, that's in the eye of the beholder. I, for myself, have to say that I do not regret the buy whatsoever. I'm very glad that I have it and will put a couple of more 1,000 kilometers on it, hopefully. If you have gotten anything out of the video, please consider liking or subscribing. And in any case, have a great week. Bye bye.